Hi, this is Vishal, and again we are in a new session of the day. That is the continuous session on whatever we have done on the last time related to the Jetpack lazy columns. So, if you remember that on the last time, what we have done, we just use simple lazy columns, and we discussed about the composed lazy columns and how we can make it as an lazy column and a lazy rows. So these are basic things we have done, and we have created a array list on that, and then we can use it and control it with that composable lazy columns. Okay. So today we discuss about that if you getting a data from the retrofit, so how we can call these things and how we can achieve these things. So whatever we have done in the last sessions, we have to implement it with the next two more steps. Okay. So if you are new, you can just watch my previous sessions, how we can implement the retrofits and how we can use that retrofits and rooms also. So many things we have done with the Kotlin. And now today the same we can do that. Simply we can use these dependencies in our project, and we can implement that lazy column. So it becomes very easier how we can get the data on our local server, and then fetch the records, and that JSON we have to represent it. Yes, I'm giving you a small example on that. So let's start it, and we'll see in Android Studio. Okay, so on our first step, what we have done, we just using that retrofit, that is the 2.90 and this JSON version. So these two we have added, and if you watch my previous sessions of the retrofit and room and many more, so you can see that many examples with the Kotlin they are already provided. So if you are new, then you have to check on that. Okay. And now the second thing is I'm using the previous session model, the same model. I'm using the device model. Here we have a string and this. For this related, I have created one JSON. So in which I am giving that ID and computer, that is the name, different names on that. Okay. So this is a simple JSON. This is a device. Okay. And I'm using the localhost URL, so we can use, and the map path is that whatever be your HTTP, you can pass it with under the folder name and your JSON name. Okay. So for this, what we have to do, we just use one interface on that in Android, so can get interact with your retrofit. Okay. And this is our exam server in which we have using the simple local path of that JSON. Okay, so these we have. So for this I'm creating a one interface Kotlin class file, and that is interface. So I already have interface, but for that other I am using this interface for this device model. Okay, so for this what we have to do, this is you give the name for that retrofit API call. Okay, so this is the our simple interface we have created. And what's the meaning of that? Means you can declare your methods, not to define, declare your methods here. So I'm using your get. Okay, so for this get functionality, that means it is related to your retrofit, so it automatically get retrofit to http get this package it imported. Okay, so our JSON is on under the device folder on our localhost server devices folder, and this is a device dot JSON. So this is our JSON. Okay, so I'm using this simple get functionality be there. That means in that get forms, or here what we have to do, that means we have to call back for that function. So we have a get devices, so which we need to get access on our main activity. So there are many ways you can create MVVM approaches also. So I will discuss it on the next step further. But I'm just using at this time how you simply call your get devices on your main activity. That's a simple call. Okay, so this is our call. So under that call, what I'm using a simple array list, and this is our device model. Okay, so this is we are using, so it asking for the call, so I'm using the call for retrofit. Okay, So this is a very simple approach. You can call your retrofit API. And on your main activity, what you have to do, we have to call these things be here. Okay. So this is our last time, what we have done last time. We have using this views and how we can call these things now. So that. So now on the same scope, what we have to do, I am creating one more function and then use, and we can get this JSON from the retrofit, and then whatever we the get array list we are fetching, we can pass it to our lazy column. So let's see how we can implement it. Okay, then we have to go on the next point, that is once our this retrofit interface be ready, we have to call this for the get devices. So I'm creating the function here fun. First we have to make it uncomposable. Okay, so composable function, and that is your fun, and I'm using get json. Okay, that get json values or whatever be. Okay, so this is our simple get json. We need to use it, but here many things we need to implement, like we have to call some data for this. So we need it that list here, we need it which context we need it from. So we have to fetch for those things. Okay, so here what we can do, you just use it simple. I'm using a device list. Okay, so this is a kind of array list, and I'm using a mutable list, and that mutable list I'm making for the device model. That's simple. Okay, and here the second thing is I need a context, so I'm using just to check this context here. And the next step is we have to call such a retrofit. So so for this retrofit call, what we have to do, we can use this retrofit and dot we have a builder for that. Okay, so for this we need a builder, and that is our the base URL, and always using this base URL. I'm using the local. Now I'm making just empty at this time. We'll provide it, and here this is your add converter factory, and here converter factory is your JSON converter factory, as we have used a second library on that, and that we have to do creation of this. So once it's done, so we have to build these things. So that is a very simple and single line, and in my previous sessions we have done many times on this. Okay, so now we have to call the retrofit API from using this. So what to do for this retrofit API? If you want to call it, you just go for this retrofit, and you have to call that create. That's very simple, and under that create you have to apply that retrofit API. And which kind of classes here? You just use class dot java. Okay, so once it's all done, that means you have to create this retrofit API and then use this API call here. So we can use a call, and that call we have to call for such an array list, and that array list is your device model. Okay, now that retrofit API, yeah, so that retrofit API dot we have to call get devices. Just very simple. So this is your simple retrofit API call. We have to use these things. We can fetch our data. Okay. So here one more thing. Sorry, we have called the previous retrofit, means our previous API interface. But here I'm using the new one. Okay, because of that is for the other um, calling JSONs. So this is our latest one. So we have to call whatever we needed, whatever we have create for this. So these three steps is just for a call. One for the retrofit, number one to it, whatever your API you have to call, and third one is your calling. So these three steps, whenever you have done, then you go for the call. And then for a call, that's very simple. What we needed just call, and that call, maybe that sometimes you get an optional. So this is your NQ, and here you can say control space and shift. So that is, you can go for your basic functions be there. So one is you have to get for on response success, and one for the failure. So I think that's very simple. And then now in response, how we can fetch the data, that we have to implement here. And if you are a failure, we can just give the toast message. That is the simple thing. Okay. So here we have to call this, we have to start the exam here for to calling such a things. And once it's done, we have to call for the local host, and my local host is working for 8080. We'll see. Yeah. So here we can check the dashboard. So here our model B devices. So you can see that we have a multiple JSONs be there. So I want to look for the device JSON. So this is the same JSON which we talking about this. This is the JSON we are using, and we have to call on our Android. So let's see what we have to use here and how we can fetch our data in the response on our model. Okay, so now we have to check that what we have implement here. So here just very simple. First you have to check that if response is successful or not. So first we are checking our response dot is successful or not. So if it is successful, then we go for the curly bracket, and we have to check um, how we can fetch that data. So first we needed a variable list variable, sorry, where dynamic list variable, and then here I'm using that array list, and that array list is your device model type as we have discussed already, and that device model is your array list. Okay, uh, yes, that is the array list. Okay, so once it's done, you just go for the list, and then this is your response dot body. We'll see if body fetch or not. Okay, so for if we go for any I loop, I in 0, and if you check that until that our less than, that is the list dot size. So until wait, I think it's on list dot size. Yes, yeah, that's perfect. So under the loop, what you have to do, you make it on the curly, and here you have to add with your device model. So this is your device list dot add. What we have to add, we need our device model here, and here this is your list dot. At this time I'm giving the explorer everything, so you can fetch it directly on that also. There's other approaches also here. So this is your I, and that I is your whatever be our name or ID, whatever you need it. So I'm fetching the name first, and then if you go for comma list dot get I dot ID. Wait, something be there, I need it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so once this device list be ready, that means we can get our data be here. Okay, so here, and the other approach is there. If it is failure, so you can do it with your um, toast method also. Okay, so this is your toast, and we have creating a toast be here, and dot toast dot with your make, and this is your context comma, whatever be you want to suggest it, you can say that failure here. Okay, and if you go for your toast, sorry, it is on comma toast dot length short I'm making, and that is dot your show. Is that? Yeah. So the Kotlin we have got the same things for the toast. Okay, so these things be ready. Then once this get JSON we have to call in our one more function as we discussed here. That means this already we create interfaces. Now we have to create composable for display view. Here we have fetched the data as in get JSON, but now how we can this render this data be in your display view? Let's see here under your function, that is the list view. Okay, so let's see here how we can implement it. So for this we have to create one more function that is related to your display view of that list. Okay, so once we have done our get JSON data, we have to call the function. Here I'm making that composable, that is also be composable we are using. That is the function I'm making display lazy list. This is a simple function, and under that what we have to do, we have to call that get JSON data and then render those views. So for this, as we have created on the context there, so I'm using the context as in a local context dot current. Okay, so whatever with our current context, it's showing there. So this is our val, our device list I'm making, and that device list is your, you have to remember. Okay, and what we have to remember, you have to remember mutable list state list of which kind is it is, you need to check that for it is a device model. Okay, so device model we need it. These things that is important whenever you get for fetch the data, because of we have to remember all those data be here. Okay, so I think if you don't know about that what is the mutable state list of and whatever be, so we'll create one more video on that. Otherwise you have to check on my previous sessions on. Okay, so under the get JSON what we have to pass, we have to pass that device list and also that context. So these two, because of here we have to pass these device list and this we have to call this function, so that we need it. And once we call this function, that means we have to add this data in our lazy column, so that's an important. So I'm making the lazy column, and I do not want these things, I just need to create a scope. So under that I already describe you on my previous session what are the items, what is single item. So these all you have to work on this. Okay, I have to pass this list under the items and again for the next scope. So this is scope for the device model here. So I'm making any model arrow. So as I told you previously how we can make a scope functions on that. So I'm calling the same function which we created the last session, that is the example row for the lazy column, in which we have a text and also a um, image on that. Okay, so these things, that means you have to find that these things and simply and then render it here. So this you have to call on your here, means your main function, whatever component activity. So by this you can fetch your data and present it in the list. Because of my device is not ready and it is on the I mean the real devices on that, so I can't show you that view, but you can check that by using yours. Okay, on my next session I will describe you more about this. Just practice on these things and then take an example on that. Okay, and if you go for this means how we can fetch the data, so we will see on our terminals. Okay, so on the logcat you can check it by this. So I think these things are very easy, and one more that is the more important, most important thing is there how we can call that get JSON URL. Okay, so this is our local host. So whatever be your local host, you can put it http, sorry, http localhost column, and this is your whatever be your IP. You can check that if you go for the 168.1 point likewise this. Okay, and this is your main URL by which you can fetch your data, and after that you can call it from anywhere. So that's like is if it's mine is 192.1.6, or if your port be there like 8080, so you can put it that port also. Okay, so that's a very simple example of the call your functions. If anything required or anything you needed, you can just put it on my comment. So I will describe you more things like on MVVM approaches and this kind of stuff for my next Jetpack tutorial. So thank you so much for the day. Thanks a lot.